Today we're coming into Module 2, where now we're going to look at how we would implement programs. And we are going to focus on the preschool age group today. Now, if you don't work with preschoolers, it's still going to be relevant because sometimes an older child or an adult is at a very low language level. Would you agree? You know, I've worked with 30-year-olds that were working on babbling. I worked with a man once who was 30 and he hadn't had speech therapy for 10 years and he wasn't making any sounds at all. And his mum said everyone's pretty much given up on him. But he liked ABBA. And can you think about the word ABBA? It's a vowel, consonant, vowel. And we know B is an early sound. And he also liked to look at birds. So I told his support workers, stand at the bird cage while he's looking at the birds and say, ba, 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 and just keep saying it to him. And the next week when I came back, they said he started going ba, 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 ba. And his mum said now he can say ABBA, ABBA. Who would have thought? Isn't that a great story? Yeah, so when you're listening today to the preschool, keep an open mind that what we're talking about really is first stages of development. Also, some of you might go, well, I don't work with preschoolers, but one day you might have a grandchild or a neighbour or your own child, and you're going to go, oh, I wish I'd paid attention, because there's nothing more cute than watching little kids learn to talk. And this topic can be about helping a child with a delay or a difficulty, but it equally can be about helping children just learn to talk, which is what parents do, isn't it? And those of you that do work with preschoolers, this could be relevant for your children you're concerned about, but this could also be relevant for your children who you just want to encourage, who you're not really concerned about, but you just want to encourage. And that really does make a difference. So my little girl, Felicity, who's now 21, who's not little, when she was little, when she was less than a year old, I just applied speech therapy techniques in a very gentle way to see what would happen. And she just loved it, and she spoke very early. And it meant that by the time she was at preschool, you know, she could really explain what she wanted. And even today, you know, she's complimented on clear speech. So we can use these techniques in all sorts of ways. Get the idea? Yeah. So hopefully you've watched the topic 5 video. That was the item 2. And you will have seen that I've spoken all about the sorts of sounds that 2-year-olds learn and 3-year-olds learn. And I focused on the 2 and 3-year-old sounds because if we're talking about programs for 3 to 5-year-olds, we don't work on the 5-year-old sounds because they're just getting those naturally. If we're working with 3, 4 and 5-year-olds, we look at the sounds sort of the step before their age. So if they're 3 and they're missing some 2-year-old sounds, that's what we'd help a 3-year-old with. If they're 4 and they haven't got their 2-year-old sounds, oh, there's quite a delay now. That's what we're helping them with. And if they're 5 and they're missing 2 and 3-year-old sounds, they really need speech therapy and they really need assistance. And those 5-year-olds might be transitioning to school. And we know that children are turning up at school with speech sounds that they can't say, and it's making an impact. And in fact, one of the ladies that joined the self-study course last week said, I'm a kindergarten teacher, so I have 20 kindergarten children. And she said, and 16 of them have speech difficulties. 16 out of 20. She said, so I'm enrolling in the course because I need to incorporate speech sound activities into my daily curriculum in the classroom. And I said, well, this course is going to be perfect for that because, you know, there really are children with these speech delays. So that's why it might seem like, oh, well, why are we focusing on 2 and 3.5-year-old sounds, but the topic is for 3 to 5-year-olds? And it's because we're sort of looking at what they should have so we know what the common errors might be and the common problems might be. Okay, let's start having a look at our booklet. You can all see that okay? Yeah, so here we are. We're delivering an articulation program, that's just a way of saying, someone's said to you, can you go and help this child with this sound? That's what I mean by delivering the articulation program. We're not designing the program. We're not diagnosing a disorder. We're delivering a program that someone has provided to us. And if you're a parent, that could be the speech pathologist gave you a program to try at home. If you're a preschool teacher, that could be your director has come to you and said, last year I worked with a speech pathologist and she left some programs. Can you work on these? So there's a number of different pathways of where you might get that program. When we look here at our first page, this is really a summary of what you would have seen in the video. So I'm not going to go over this one in any more detail. This will be there for you to read. But I do want to point out that in the supplementary items, the articulation chart, I've actually put 2 different charts in there for you to be able to download. One of them looks like the one in the video. So when you watched the video and I kept holding up a chart, it didn't have green on it. It was just black and white. So there's that version. And then it's also got the version that was in the topic 2 booklet. And I've put it in the supplementary items now because it doesn't say topic 2 booklet on it. It's just like a poster and you can print it. And I'm just letting you know that you have permission to print the supplementary item, the articulation charts. I know that sometimes a parent might want to know what it is you're working on. So my articulation chart, it's kind of like it's in the public domain. I'm happy for it to be shared. Okay. And the reason I'm not bringing that up now is because I've actually got it on this page. Can you see the articulation development chart? It's just there in grey, but this is what we looked at in topic 2. And this is what will be in the supplementary item. This is also what you've got in your activities booklet. So can you grab your activities booklet and just have that in front of you? Module 2 now. So it'll be your module 2 activities booklet, the one that's grey on the front. There we go. And what we'll do is we'll just go through this activity just together, and then you can have a look back at it afterwards if you want. But basically we want to see which are, if I just show the activity now, we're going to use the chart as a reference and circle the sounds that are typically pronounced correctly by the time a child is 3 years and 6 months. And the S sound has been done as an example. So can you imagine now that you've got a 5-year-old sitting next to you? You want to just do a bit of role play if that helps. Go, hello, 5-year-old. And you're going to have a listen to the 5-year-old talk. Maybe you might share a book with them. Let's go through a book together. And you're like, I wonder what sounds they should have had definitely by the time they're 3.5. Because if any of the sounds that 2-year-olds get and 3 to 3.5-year-olds get, if any of those are missing in this little 5-year-old, that's giving me a clue that maybe there's a bit of a delay. Now, there's no pressure on you to diagnose a delay. In fact, that does come under the role of a speech pathologist. But you don't have to diagnose a delay. You can just have like a theory, or just like that's interesting. I might look into that a bit deeper, or I might chat to someone about it. Okay, so if I get the annotation tool, let's have a look. And we want to find all of the sounds we'd expect this 5-year-old to be able to say, because the articulation chart shows us that typically this is when children are saying sounds. So let's have a look. Can you see me circling? We've got a W. And now I'm going to come down and I'm going to find the W. And it's here. It's under 3 to 3.5 years. So I'm going to put a circle around the W. And if you've got a pen and you've got your activities booklet there, you can do this as we go. Otherwise, you can come back and do it. Now I want to look at Now, some of you might go, oh, I totally remember that is an early sound, because we talked about kids saying mum, mum, mum. And there it is. It's in the 2 to 2.5 years. So I'm going to circle that one. So if our 5-year-old couldn't say we'd be pretty worried about that, wouldn't we? P, you might remember that's an early one. So I'm going to circle that. B is also in that 2 years. What about Should a 5-year-old be saying, let's go and find when it would come? And it's there in the 3 into 3.5. So I'm going to circle that one. And yeah, I can tell you lots of 5-year-olds are starting school and they're not saying yet. Those poor kindergarten teachers. That would be a real handful, wouldn't it? You're trying to teach those kindy kids how to, unwrap their lunch and hold on to go to the toilet and say bye to mum or dad in the morning. You didn't really want to add to your list, and I've got to teach them how to say because they can't even count and say 4 and 5. But this is what's happening. But you can be confident that when you're sitting next to that 5-year-old, they should be able to say, this is fun. This is fun. Or if they're reading the book with Kita, can you find a mouse? But what if they were going, this is bun. Can you bind a mouse? You'd be like, wow. So this chart, you might want to come back and check it. I'm pretty sure they shouldn't be saying bind the mouse and this is bun if they're 5. Now, what about th? That's a late sound. That's down at 5 and 5.5. So now if that 5-year-old was saying, I like you very much. What's the word there? I like you very much. Or guess how old I am? I'm 5. I'm 5. Now you could see, oh, well, they should get the v by 5 to 5.5. And they turned 5 last week. Oh, okay. So that's not a delay. We're hoping that they're going to get it soon, but actually it's okay at the moment. Can you see that? So we're not going to circle v. What about the TH sounds? Look how late they are. They're right down in 6 to 8, so we're not going to circle them. Middle of mouth. What about t? There it is in 3 to 3.5, so let's circle t. D. That was a 2-year-old sound. Dad, 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 dad. Remember? So we're going to circle that one. There we go. And what about l? What's your instincts around l? Got the 5-year-old going, I like you. Maybe they're talking to Danielle. Danielle, I like you. And they're 5. Oh, look, it's 4 to 4.5. So what are we thinking for the 5-year-old? Just a bit behind. Just a little bit. We probably wouldn't want to say to mum or dad, oh, your child's got a speech delay. Did you know that? Look at my chart. They've got a speech delay because it's only just there, isn't it? And maybe there's some other factors going on. So rather than say, oh, your child's got a speech delay, you might say, oh, I've got this articulation chart. I've just noticed that is in the 4 to 4.5 years. Have you ever thought about that? The parent might go, oh, yeah, they're having speech therapy. Or the parent might say, I've been thinking about speech therapy. What are your thoughts? And you might go, well, I'm not a speech pathologist, but I have learned a bit about it. And according to this chart, it might be worth maybe ringing a speech pathologist or chatting to the preschool teacher. So we're not going to circle no. 2-year-olds can say no. We'll circle that one. S is already circled for us because it's a 3.5 years. And z, we're going to focus on s and z today as a pair, but look, z doesn't come right until the next category, 4 to 4.5. And you may or may not remember me saying that z is harder to say than s. Can you all try alternating between both of those? S, z, s, z. Can you feel that when you put your voice on, you need a little bit more pressure and that makes it just that bit harder? So z isn't circled. The only other one that's going to be circled in this group is the y, because y is a glide, and we know that glides are easy. And that one is a 3-year-old sound. And then right down the bottom, we've got, because we know that 2-year-olds can say, just have a bit of a look at that. I wonder if that's sort of what you were expecting. And also, would you agree that the sounds are kind of weighted towards the front of the mouth? And some at the middle, but the front sort of middle. So we know that it's easier for the young kids to do the fronted sounds. Okay. Well, thank you for doing that activity. And that's been a good place to start. Those of you that do work in schools, you would know that children are turning up with some of those 2-year-old and 3-year-old sounds as errors. And that's why this is actually a really good course for school teachers. Okay, let's go to our next page. So on this page, I've just taken some of the typical developmental speech errors that I talked about on the video, just to sort of sort them into common and not so common. So on the video, I put the common ones in, the typical ones, and I also put a few unusual ones or strange ones, like I sort of said that the child that can't say but might change it to a d, and then I said that's not really very typical, or that's atypical. So some of the things that children do are disorders, and we're going to discuss that in topic 8. But just right for now, let's just look at some really common typical errors. And because they're developmental, that means we're not worried about it. It's not strange. In fact, we almost expect it. Okay, so developmental means it's part of development. Can you think about walking? What's a developmental stage in walking? Crawling, pulling up to stand, first steps. So that just follows development, doesn't it? Every child might do it slightly differently, but there's a general pattern. So developmental speech errors are like that. When the 2-year-old says, see that big, it's bink. See that pig, it's pink. The speech pathologist doesn't go, oh, that's weird. The speech pathologist goes, oh yeah, that's just typical. We expect that. And so these errors, we don't have to be worried about them when they're developmental. The only thing we need to think about for developmental is the child in the expected range, or developmentally, should they have got that a while ago? Would you all agree if you saw a 4-year-old that couldn't walk, you would go, that's not right? Okay, so I think we have more of an understanding of things like walking. What about jumping? Should a 4-year-old be able to jump? Yes. What about a 2-year-old? Could a 2-year-old jump? It's going to depend on your life experience, isn't it? So the same with speech. But what I've found is that lots of people don't have any clue about development with speech. And sometimes you'll see someone, even a school teacher might say, I've got a 6-year-old and they can't say, is that okay? And I'll be like, wow, they're really not sure. And so that's a good reason for this course, because this isn't taught in university about speech development. So let's have a look at our plosives, which we know for this early age group would be the p at the front and the t in the middle. And a really typical thing is where the voiceless p is made with a b. And so we get pig is big, and the voiceless t is made with a d. So we get 8, 9, den. So I'll stop the share. So I wonder if that's making sense to you. I want you to imagine now it's not the 5-year-old sitting next to you, it's the typical 2-year-old, okay? If a typical 2-year-old is just saying little sentences and they go, pour the drink, what do you think the typical 2-year-old would say for pour? Pour the drink. But what if they weren't holding the bottle and they just came up and the drink's in the other room and they go, I bore it, I bore it. No, me bore it, me bore it. Are you going to be like, bore? Are they meaning bore a hole? Can you see how we can get some confusion? But fortunately, 2-year-olds often just walk around holding stuff, don't they, and pointing to it, and we kind of with them. But what about the 5-year-old who's now talking in really long sentences and goes, oh, yesterday I was at home and I'm boring a dink. They perhaps can't say drink. I was boring a dink and my didda was dang, that's stupid. And you've got no idea because there's all these errors. And bore a dink, you can't see the context. So this is why, even though it's normal development and we might go, oh, well, they'll get it. You wouldn't leave the 5-year-old that can't walk and go, oh, they'll get it. So let's not leave the 5-year-old that can't say p or f. And it's really important that we understand that, because some people have resistance against providing speech programs for developmental errors because they go, it's normal. But a delay, we know we've got to keep an eye on that. And also, what about the 5-year-old that goes, oh yeah, and I bored the dink, and we just go, yeah, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Now it affects their self-esteem, doesn't it? And their confidence. Or maybe the teacher says, go and sit down and write what you did on the weekend. And this 5-year-old, just because they can't pronounce sounds, doesn't mean they're not clever. And they might want to write poor, but they'll go bore, and they'll write a b. And then the teacher just doesn't know what they're saying. And then eventually that 5-year-old might start going, oh, I'm not very good at this, or I won't try. So we don't want to leave these common developmental errors. Once the child's behind, we want to help them. Okay. Look at the fricatives. So we have lots of common developmental errors for fricatives, and I'll just come straight to the words here. So again, we're looking at maybe our 4-year-old who has a delay now, and they want to say for, but they might say saw. If their little 2-year-old brother or sister came in and said, my brother's saw, we're not worried about them because they've got time for it to just naturally develop. Okay. We might show them, but we're not thinking, oh, they need speech therapy. But if they're a 4-year-old and they go, I'm sore, I'm older than my little sister because I'm sore. Can you see how now we're like, sore, like, have you hurt yourself? So all of these errors can cause confusion. They might say bore, they might say door. Let's have a look at what's happening if they say door. And these are all words that you know now. If instead of a long fricative, they shorten it to a d, they've actually made it into a plosive, haven't they? Which we can call stopping. They've voiced it. Listen to voiceless. But they've said door, d, voiced. And where is it? Front of mouth. D, middle of mouth. They've made the sound come back. So can you see that the 4-year-old who says, I'm door, has made 3 different errors on their sound? So a speech pathologist who hears that is going to be pretty worried. If they just said saw, let's go back and see the front F sound is made further back. They've only got 1 error because they've still got a fricative, haven't they? And it's still voiceless. So they might go 1, 2, 3, saw, sive. It's a little bit easier to guess what they're saying because they've almost got it right. So there's different levels of delays and different levels of common errors. The S sound, we're going to focus on that from here on. And the S sound can have all sorts of things happening to it. It can have, again, still a fricative, but now it's gone to sh. So sun said as shun. This would sound a bit sort of slushy. I'll just stop the share. If someone came up to you and said, can you she that? Can you she that? What do you think they're saying? Can you she that? Does it sound like see that, but all sort of slushy? So the little 4 or 5-year-old that sounds all kind of slushy, it might be that they're getting the voiceless fricative, but there's just a bit too far back. Can you try going with your own mouth? Now change it to sh, shh, and then back to shh. What would the seal be? I went to the zoo and I saw a seal. That would be confusing, wouldn't it? So we can't leave that one. We're going to have to work on that error because it's going to cause confusion. The S might go to D, and now it's gone to a plosive and it's been voiced. But have they changed the place? S, D, S, D. It's the same place. And this is a really common error. In fact, if you start helping to deliver articulation programs, then this is one that you'll definitely do, helping those kids that say d instead of s. And we'll come down now because you can read through that in a bit more detail. And here's the little girl. I'll just make that bigger. And look at her. She says, I'm learning today the ed down. I'm learning today the ed down. What's she saying? I'm learning to say the S sound. Yeah. And I can pick a kid that's using d for s from a mile away. And it's one of those things that makes me a bit nervous. Imagine if you're a mechanic. If you're a mechanic, you might get nervous when you hear a car backfire. You know, if you're an architect, you might get nervous if you see a building and the foundation doesn't look right. I get nervous if I'm in the supermarket and I hear some kids say, hey, mum, please, can I show you dumb a dat? And I'm like, oh no. And then I'll come over and I'll go, oh, hello, doing some shopping. How old's your child? And if they go, oh, 3, but they're really big for 3, I'll be like, oh, okay. And I'll walk away. Oh, 5. Yeah, they're starting school. And I'll be like, oh, what else are you buying today? And I'll try to engage them because I know that that's a problem. I do transition to school programs, and I had a mum come up and she said, I'm not worried about my child at all. I just came to the transition to program because, you know, someone suggested it. I'm like, oh, okay. And, you know, this is my son. And I said, oh, come and say hello. And he goes, yeah, I'm Dick. And my didder, Debin. And I was like, okay, so 7, Debin. And then I looked at mum and went, it's really good you came. Yeah. And by the end of it, I had her signed up for speech therapy. Yeah, so you'll start to tune your ear in for these common ones. Don't try to do all of them because it's, you know, you're not doing a university degree, you're not getting the benefit of years and years. But if you can just learn some of these, that'll be really helpful. So here are the 4 that I suggest that you have a think about. The f sound, and your job might be to help them to bite on their lip. Can you all try making F now? And can you hear the little sort of friction sound in your own mouth, and maybe even a few bubbles of saliva? Some children just can't do that and they go like this. 4. So Ali, you might go back to your preschool and start trying to help some kids. If they can't go, then you can't just launch into a program with them. We actually have to even teach them just to make the sound. The S sound is going to be a really common one. And when you have a closer look at the articulation chart, you'll see if they say 6 and 7, they've got a fricative, they've got voiceless. It's just a tiny bit far forward, but they'll be understood. In fact, they'll sound cute. And we don't need to work on the lisps until they're a bit older. But if they're saying Dick and Debin, then they haven't even got a fricative. The P sound should have been right at 2. So we get 3 and 4-year-olds that can't make P, and we definitely work on that. And T, we get kids that can only say D. So instead of 1, 2, 3, they go 1, 2, 3. And instead of 8, 9, 10, they go 8, 9, 10. And we do need to work on that one. Okay. So I'll just stop that. So we're really getting into it now, aren't we? We're really starting to think about, there's a child sitting with us and we're listening. Now, some of you see kids all the time and you'll be able to go straight from today and practice some of this. And some of you might never see little kids, but you can go on the internet and just search, you know, children speaking, or you might go and visit a friend, or you might do like I do and walk around the supermarket, follow them and see what they're saying. And if you're like me, you'll be going, hello, how old's your child? And then you'll get your chart out. That's fine, move along. Yeah. Okay. Any questions or comments? You having fun? Yeah, good. All right. We're going to introduce some terminology which is important, and that is old way, new way. We've been talking about target sound, so you're probably getting used to that. But old way and new way is how we talk about it with our little 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds. We don't sit down with our 3, 4 and 5-year-olds and go, we're going to work on your speech error because people are misunderstanding you, and your new target sound is f, because, you know, that's just not appropriate language, is it? So instead we talk about new way, old way. And I'll stop the share for a minute because this is really important. If you're working with little preschoolers, you can't make your language too complicated because they won't understand. And what's good about new way and old way, there's 2 really good reasons. If you're keeping notes, you can write these down. The first one is it tends to be something easy that they understand, okay? And you could give some examples. I've noticed that your shoes today look quite old. I can see that because they're a bit dirty. I think you've worn them a lot, but you love them, don't you? You love your old shoes. When do you wear those? Oh, when you come to see me? What about new shoes? Has mum or dad ever bought you new shoes? Oh, yes. What are they for? Are they for when you go to a special party? Or you might go, your shoes look new today. Are they new? So you can talk about new shoes and old shoes. If that's not working for you, you could find any sort of picture or just whatever's relevant for that child. We don't say right and wrong, and we're not going to say your old shoes are bad because we don't want old to be bad. We just want this concept of this is what I was wearing and now I've got something new, but I still go back to my old. Okay, so that's the first reason, is it's a concept that 3, 4 and 5-year-olds do understand, unless they have other language issues going on. But for today, we're going to assume that they're typically developing in terms of their thinking. The second thing that's really important is because we do still need that old sound. If the child that says Devon instead of 7, or D, I can D that instead of C, when are they still going to need dirt? What about if they want to say open the door? They still need dirt, don't they? And they're not going to know whether a word needs their new sound or their old sound. At first, they're using the error, which is their old sound. And we need to be able to say to them, let's go back to the p and b, okay? Imagine if they go, I'm boring the drink, I'm boring it. And we go, oh, that needs your new sound. P. You want to all do that onto your finger so you can feel it? P. Pour, that's it. Pour. So you could do that with a 2-year-old now, just as part of just helping them with their development. That's it. Pour. Now, what if they pick up their teddy bear? We don't want them to then go, oh, I can't say but because that was wrong. This is my pear. Here's my pear. Now we want to say, no, that's your old sound. That's loud. Bear. Oh, bear. Can you feel the difference? You try it on your hand. Bear. Now try pear. Can you feel that pear, there's a lot more puff? So we want to be able to say to the child, when you pour the drink, that's your new way. When you cuddle your bear, that's your old way. Bear. And if this doesn't happen, sometimes children will go in their little brains, whether it's conscious or whether it's subconscious, they'll go, oh, everything where I was saying b has to be p. So then they'll go, Mummy, can I go to bed? I mean, bed. And at first you can think you've broken them. Like parents will come in and go, they're calling everything with a p now. They might even go, this is my knife, my p knife. And they're so excited to use their new sound. So we have to have a way of saying, oh, you don't need your new sound. So can you see if you were saying before that bore, no, that's wrong. Pour, that's right. Then they get this association of but is bad. So I don't want to say it. So we really like old and new because we still need the old way. And an example of this, I've got a 16-year-old that I'm working with at the moment, and he tried to change his sounds. So he was saying wabbit and wed, and we helped him, well, it wasn't me, it was someone else helped him to say rabbit and red. Fantastic. Now he says run, 2, 3. And he's changed everything to the And at 16, we're still having to work on it. He says 12 and 20 instead of 12 and 20. And it's a really good reminder that we need this idea of old and new way. Those of you working with preschoolers now, adopt that terminology straight away because it's really helpful. So there you can read about that, the old way and the new way. And then what we're going to do for the next half an hour, which is the rest of this tutorial, we're going to really understand now about the speech hierarchy. And I've just got it there at the top of the page. And we're going to go through like a whole articulation program that we're going to squeeze it into half an hour. And this might normally be 10 weeks or 20 weeks or a few months. And we're having a look at all the steps. Okay, there we go. So we can see that when we do the articulation program, we go from most basic to most complex, and we call it a speech hierarchy. Can you see I circled speech hierarchy? Are you familiar with that term hierarchy? So whenever you're working with the child, you're thinking of the hierarchy. And in topic 4, we talked about moving up and down the steps. So today we're looking at that in more detail. And as we're going through that speech hierarchy, we're constantly thinking of how are they going? We actually want to go through these steps from 1 to 12, starting in the yellow, going to the green, and once they're getting 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 right, going on to the next step. Okay, let's just have a look so we can agree that it is from basic to complex. So the very easiest thing is we don't even ask the child to say the sound. We just ask them to listen. So imagine we're doing with paw and bore. So we might say, I'm going to say P, and every time I say P, can you clap your hands? Okay. Would you guys like, those of you that I can see, would you like to be my little kids? So when I say P, you clap your hands for me. Ready? D, don't do it now. P. Yes, well done. You heard it. P. Fantastic. Oh, don't get tricked this time. B. P. Yes. Get the idea? So that's the very easiest task. Then we go on to imitating the new sound in isolation. The next thing would be they imitate you. So this time I'm going to make the sound and you say it after me. Are you ready? You say it. Excellent. You used your soft whispery sound. Can you do it onto your finger? You try. Amazing. We're doing the sound all by itself. And let's imagine they can do that really well. So number 3. Now, what we can do is write a letter. Can you imagine we're writing a letter P? If they're really little, we might make a P with Play-Doh. And it doesn't matter if they can't read yet, but would you agree that if they're 4 or 5, we can teach them about a letter? So we've got the letter P in front of them. It could be we've drawn it in the sand, we've made it out of buttons, or it could be we've written it with a pen. And we're going to say, put your finger on the letter and you make the sound. All right, can you all put out some imaginary Play-Doh? Or put your finger on the Play-Doh. Now, I'm not going to let you copy me. You just do it. Off you go. Are you making the sound? Are you going? Do it 5 times. Go. I can see you making the sound. Well done. Fantastic. So 3 is harder than 2 because with 2, you heard me and saw me. And then you copied. So that's imitation. Let's do imitation again. Ready? Copy me. Your turn. Copy me again. All right, now, can you see the letter in your hand? You say it. Off you go. You had to use your memory And you couldn't have done that if you hadn't learnt what to do. So that's why that's a bit harder. Step 4 is imitate syllables or CV words. And can you see the little girl? So I'm going to say it and you imitate me. See, well done. Say, excellent. So, sir, oh, very good sounds. Sigh, sour, good. Sue, seer, excellent. So that was a bit easier because it's imitation, but it's a bit harder because it was a consonant and a vowel. So that's gone up a level. Now have a look at the girl. Her name is Sue. That's a CV, isn't it? Sue. Can you point to her and say her name? Go. Do it again. Say her name. Are you saying Sue? Yes? So you're using your memory. Now, if we'd gone a bit too fast and you were stopping and you were saying dirt, you might have been able to go after me, see, and you'd go see because you're copying, say, and you'd say because you're copying. And then I might say, what's her name? And now you've gone do because you didn't get to copy. So each time we do the imitation, which is the easier, and then we go on to, now you say it with a prompt or a cue. And we're going to learn this technique as we go. If you see there, I'm not going to go through each one now, but I'm just going to read it from the list. Then we go to imitating single words like sun and seat, and then showing the child the pictures, and they've got to say sun and seat without copying. And we go to 2 and 3 word phrases, and then sentences, and then making up stories, and then talking about a scene where it's just like chatting, like seeing a picture. But guess what? I think you all think this is pretty easy. I think you're all sitting there going, well, that wouldn't take long. I mean, surely if they can go sun, what's hard about that? So I'm going to wave my magic wand, ta-da, and I'm going to take you into an artificial land where I'm going to give you a speech error, because I want you to feel for yourself what it's like to have a speech error. And we're going to start this process now, and some of it we might have that you'll come back and do yourself afterwards. But basically, we can get a little bit of a view that children are lazy or they're not trying hard enough. And this relates back to our poster last week. So the little girl or the little boy that says sun every time we say it, sun, sun, or the one who says pour when we tell them, put your finger up, say pour, pour the drink, fantastic. Pour the drink. And then Daddy comes in the room and goes, Daddy, can you pour the drink? Can you pour the drink? What's our reaction? I just told you. We just did it 20 times. But suddenly that's a harder task, isn't it? Because now they're thinking about Daddy, they're thinking about the drink. It was in a sentence. And just because they can do it with the prompt and copying doesn't mean they can do it. So to convince you, I'm going to take you through that hierarchy now. And you need your activity booklet there. So have that in front of you. I want you to pretend now that you are a 5-year-old and you have a speech error, and I have to create a weird sort of artificial error for this to work. So your error is that you keep changing the d sound to s, and you've entered a world where every time you would say s, you should really be writing d. Now the spelling still looks like an S, but in this artificial word, that shape, can you all draw an S in the air? That shape actually goes d. And now can you draw a Z? That shape also goes d. Now can you draw a D? That also goes d. So all of those 3 letters require a d phoneme. We're going to go through the hierarchy so that you can go, oh, this is why you have to go slow. And you're going to get to a point where your brain is just going to go. We'll see if it does it early on or later on. And then afterwards we can reflect on it. Okay, everybody ready? Yeah, please still like me. All right. So if you can have this one in front of you, get your pen ready. And remember, step one in the hierarchy was all you have to do is listen. Okay, and I'm just going to be playing the audio files, which you can go and find in Moodle. You ready to listen?
Topic 5, Speech Error Activity, Step 1. Tick the heart when you hear me say your new sound on its own. So when you hear D, tick the heart. D, S, D, Sh, B, D, D, Z, S, D.
Okay, that was pretty easy because all you had to do was when you heard D was tick it. Would you agree that that was easy? Nice, easy one, and that would be a good place to start. Okay. Step 2, it says tick the star while you imitate your new sound on its own. So you have to allow yourself to see the letters S and Z, but hear the sound D and say D. This is like saying your target sound or your new sound in isolation. Off we go. I'll do it with you, just these first couple.
Topic 5, Speech Error Activity, Step 2. Tick the star while you imitate your new sound on its own. So you're looking at the first one, and I'm going to say the sound, and you say it after me.
So please say it where
D.
you are. D. Can you all say it as you go?
You said it. Well done. Tick the star. Let's do the next one. D. Your turn.
D.
Good. Tick the star. Next one. Copy me. D.
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 Good. Now you're looking at the second row. I'm going to say the sound and you copy me, then tick the star. D.
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 Have you got 10 stars ticked?
Yay!
Well done on doing so well with your new sound.
Still in your yellow zone? Okay, for your next one, step 3, there's no audio because there's no imitation now. So what I want you to do is just touch the letter. So I'm going to touch that first letter and I'm going to say my new sound, D. So have a go. Can you touch your letter, say your new sound, and then when you get to this one, say D and touch it. Off you go. Okay. Just in case you were unsure, just watch me do it. D. D. I'm saying my new sound. D. This is what they told me to say when I see this letter. I go, D. Oh, I'm getting it. When I see this one, before I used to say zzz, my old way was zzz, but my new way is D. D. I can do this. D. This is fun. D. Can you imagine? Still in the yellow zone. Were any of you sort of in the green or the red? Because you're like going, this feels so wrong. But you're trusting me, weren't you? When you have a child in your program, you've got to get them to trust you. They don't want to say dirt, but you're encouraging them. All right, step 4.
Topic 5, Speech Error Activity, Step 4. Copy me as I say each funny word. Remember your new sound. Da. D. Do. Die. deer, dow, doe, day, dower, doy. Well done on copying 10 silly words.
Okay. Probably all feeling a little bit crazy now, but I wonder if you were able to just trust the voice you could hear and go, well, all I have to do is imitate. Remember, imitation is easier because you didn't have to think too hard. Think about if you're in your yellow zone still, or were you in your green zone a bit because you had to make sure the writing didn't distract you. So first of all, you're saying it as imitation to learn the words, and then you're going to go back and say them on your own just by being prompted by the picture. Here we go.
Topic 5, Speech Error Activity, Step 5. Say the 5 words after me, then say the 5 words again on your own. I'm going to point to the first picture and say its name, and you copy me. D. Next one. Doe. Next one. Der. Next one. Door. Last one. Dower. Yes, that lemon is a bit dour.
Okay, now say them yourself and tick as you say them. Remember your new sound. Remember your D. Okay, I wonder who's in their green zone at the moment. You can do it, but there's some effort. You can feel the effort. If you're feeling like, oh, I'm not even sure if I can do it, it means you've probably gone into the red zone. Now we're pushing through the program quickly and we wouldn't normally do it this quickly, but I want you to experience that kind of, oh, that was so much harder when I couldn't imitate. Okay, for step 6, which is the pictures you can see, we're back to imitation, but it's still going to be a bit tricky. And to make it a bit trickier, I've now put the new sound, D. It might be at the start of the position, word initial position. It might be word medial position, or it might be word final position. Now, remember, your old way of saying things is going to sound quite different to my new way. The new way is what you have to do. So when you're copying me, you might even be going, I don't even know what the word is, because you're not using your memory now. You're just using your imitation. But just copy me, just trust me and copy me. I'll copy the recording. Are you ready?
Topic 5, Speech Error Activity, Step 6. Can you imitate the following 10 words using your new D sound? 1. Done. 2. Deet. 3. Dad. This man is dad. 4. Dockaball. 5. Lidden. 6. Dynador. 7. Glarded. 8. Horde. 9. Bud. 10. Dinger.
Okay, I'll just stop for a moment. Is anyone going, oh, is it making your brain feel a bit crazy? Yeah. So when we get children in and they're saying bore, bore, that really means tipping the water to them. Whereas pour doesn't. Pour just is, oh, I'm just copying what you said. But in my brain, it's stored as bore. So we really start to challenge kids when they're in an articulation program, and that's why we have to take it nice and slow and be really encouraging. I've done this with parents sometimes who've said, oh, my child's just being lazy, they can say it. And I get the parents to do this activity and then they go, wow, that's actually harder than I thought. We're going to push on now. We're really going to get into some hard ones now, but I'll ask you to stick with it and we'll see how we go. The next thing we're going to do is we have to do it without imitation, if you remember. So first of all, I want you to just see if you can say the words, and I'm going to say them one more time, just in case you can't remember. So number 1 is done. That's probably easy. Number 2 is deet. Number 3, dad. He id not happy. He id dad. He id dad. See, he id crying. He id dad. Number 4, dockaball. Number 5, lidden. He can lidden with hid eared. Lidden. Number 6, diner door. Number 7, gladed. I've got gladed. Number 8, horde. I like to ride a horde. Number 9, bud. Number 10, dinger. The lady id a dinger. Can you go back and just say just one word? So for number 1, you just say done, and then each one and just say the word by itself, but I'm not going to help you. Remember your new sound. Off you go. So afterwards, you can come and play the audio files again and try this again. But let's go on to the next activity now. Step 7. This is another way of doing it for people who are literate. So your 4 and 5-year-olds, you couldn't do this task, but your 7 or 8-year-olds, you could. And this is getting you to read it. Okay, so step 7, it doesn't need an audio file. Can you go through and read those words and remember your new sound? So for the first one, you're going to say do. And for the second one, you're going to say wad. Off you go. Okay, I might read them now and you can see how you went. Did you say do, wad, wadn't, plead, cheed, lady, dip, cudden, diro, pride? Did you get all your new sound? Well done. Okay, step 8 is when now we're going to give you some imitation. So that's good, but it's going to be 2 and 3 word phrases. So even though it's imitation, it's still going to be hard because you're really going to have to think. Okay, ready to do that one? So listen to the phrase and repeat the phrase and remember your new sound.
Topic 5, Speech Error Activity, Step 8. Can you copy these 2 and 3 word phrases using your new sound? 1. The do. 2. He wad happy. 3. I wadn't lady. 4. Dumb cheed. 5. Dumb milk. 6. A big pride. 7. Dip the short. 8. Plead day yed. 9. I have diro. 10. I like cheed.
Okay. Wow. And if you're thinking, oh, this is crazy. It couldn't be this hard. This is what it's like for clients because it's a substitution, isn't it? And this is why they can go, pour, pour, and then they go, hang on a minute, Daddy, watch me pour the drink. Now, if you don't believe me, this next one is going to really show you that because now, no imitation. I want you to sit there just for a minute and make up sentences of at least 5 words about these pictures. So, for example, the first one, you might go, the lady is dinging a dong. Oh, no, hang on a minute. You said is. No, the lady is id dinging a dong. Or the sun, you might say, the dun id hot. Can you see what's happened? I've had to really slow down. And this is what happens is it makes you slow down. So can you all have a go just for about 2 minutes and just try to rattle them off? Just like, hey, Daddy, yeah, I'm boring the drink. Don't write them. You're not allowed to write them. You got to say them. Because if you were 4 or 5, you couldn't write them and check them. And in a minute, I've just got to ask for a couple of volunteers. I won't force you, but see how you go. Can you just say some sentences? Like when you see dinosaur, you might go, the dinosaur id green. The next step, which you can do after we finish the tutorial, is the hardest step, step 12, and that is where you just talk. Okay, so let me just show you. So you can do this after. I can D a man holding a camera wearing thonged. I can D 2 dealed and a hot done. There id a derf board and a green turtle. Someone had built a dand cardle. Now that was really effortful. I was having to really think about it, and I've done this lots of times. So that's the sort of thing I want you to try, and it's going to help you have empathy for what it is we ask of our clients. And the last little one here is the story. So just while you're finishing up thinking about this, I'll just play the story. That's the last one. And then I'll just give you a minute or two just to have a quick chat. So.
Page 7 of the Topic 5 booklet. Can you remember to change all the s sounds to d in the following story? One dunny day, a young boy walked along the road kicking hid dockaball. He daw a hoard, then he daw dump thing big and green. He wadn't wearing hid glarded, dough he rubbed hid eyed. He couldn't believe what he wad deeing. It wad a dinosaur. He ran home shouting and yelling at the top of hid void. When he got in died, hid dad wad ditting on a red deet, crying and looking dad. What id it, dad? Why are you do dad? I mid the bud dead hid dad. I'm meant to be at a condert right now, listening to a famed dinger. She id going to be dinging my favourite dong, dumbware.
The idea of today is to just allow you to feel that confusion, and afterwards you can get this page, or you can do it as soon as we finish if you like, and just go through and tick the things that were true for you. Like it says, I was okay with copying words, but it was harder to think of the words myself. And if you're like, yeah, definitely, then you can tick that one. I mean, you can even do it now if you like. The next one was the earlier steps were easier than the later steps. I'm sure that was true. And that's how it should be because it was a speech hierarchy. I found reading easier than speaking because the letter S was a good reminder to say D. When I had to think about what to say and how to say it, like when you were making up the sentences, I had to slow right down. If you found yourself slowing right down, I know I did. I wonder if any of you were like this. After a few minutes, I felt like I'd had enough and I wanted to go back to my old way. Don't make me say that. And this is why clients will be resistant in their sessions, and even our older adults, you know, that have had a stroke or an accident. They're like, oh, you know, the kid just goes, I just want to say bore, like, because there's no effort to that. Whereas pour, they have to stop and think. And what about this one? Did you change other sounds to dirt too? Yeah, we nearly all do. I went to say sometimes and I went dumb dimes, and I changed the t to a d, dumb dimes instead of dumb times. I bet some of you changed the sh word. Yeah, because you saw the letter S. Yeah. And you can write some other observations there. And if any of you really feel strongly about this, feel free to write something and take a photo and send it to me, because I'm always fascinated by people's reactions. And so now, just to finish up, imagine being a preschooler and you can't read. Imagine doing all those tasks and you couldn't even read. So you were at a real advantage, weren't you? No wonder children need a lot of praise and encouragement, and we should only stick at this for a minute or two. And there's the child that just did lots of articulation with you on S, and then they've run outside and you've heard them go, Dory, I didn't dit near you on the bud. And in before you might have gone, oh, they're just not trying. Whereas now you're like, oh yeah, they're not ready for talking in conversation. Okay, the very last thing I've put here is, in the supplementary items, I've got a free S program, a link to a free S program and a D program you can go and have a look at. But if you want to, you could go on to the internet now and just type in program for speech pathology. And, you know, back in my day when I first left uni, I had to make everything by hand. Now they're all there. Some are free, some are you pay for them. Like Teachers Pay Teachers is a good site. You could watch YouTube videos. You can Google, you know, see a child in an articulation program and you'll start to recognize some steps. And you can think about that speech hierarchy. So I'll stop the share. So I wonder if you're quite tired after that. And if you are, it's because I kept pushing you and you'd find yourself in the red zone, maybe when you couldn't imitate, maybe in the green zone when you could. Just remember that we went through it way quicker than normal. And also remember the purpose was to give you empathy and understanding. Who thinks they have a bit more empathy now as to how hard it is? We can all benefit from this, because sometimes we expect a lot from children, and when they squirm and when they're tired or when they can't, you know, perhaps they're not being lazy, perhaps they're not being stubborn. Perhaps it's because in their brain, it just feels really weird. Now, if anyone has a parting comment, imagine if I said, would you like to come on and just tell me what that was about? But can you remember your new sound? Don't use any sounds as you're talking to me. Off you go. You can't, can you? But that's what the pressure is we say to children, you know, and sometimes we'll come back and go, oh, it's not, the therapy's not working because they're just saying the old sound all the time. And we have to remind them, no, they're not going to get it in everyday talking. So a good challenge is go back through your booklet, some of those later tasks, and get your phone out and record yourself. Like say your sentences and record yourself and play it back and check there's no snuck in. Or read the paragraph and record yourself and play it back. In speech therapy or in an articulation program, we need our pictures and we need our words. And we can't just sit and do it without anything, just by chatting, because you need to give the client every advantage, don't you? Whether it's imitation, whether it's going slow, building rapport, and then having visual cues. Okay, well, that's been really a great start to Module 2. Next week, we'll be looking at our children in that starting school age, like 5 years to 8 years. So it'll still cover preschool, the 5-year-olds transitioning, and then it'll cover kids when they first get to school and looking at the sorts of programs we might work on with them. But yeah, don't forget to go and have a look at your supplementary items, and also record yourself. See if you can record yourself doing one of those things. So thanks, everyone.